UTM idakhazikitsidwa ndipo ilipo mpaka namuyaya. Iyi UTM iyi ena afe tikonza kudzapita chifukwa tidzapita ndithu munthu amene akupita, koma iyi ili apa UTM iyi ilipo mpaka namuyaya. Ichi ndi chipani cha anthu tonsefe, palibe mwini wake. Ine sine mwini wake, ine munangondiuza kuti nditsogole. Kutsogolo kuno akapezeka ena atsogolerenso nawo. Izi nzopatsirana relay race. Ichi si chipani cha mtundu, si chipani cha banja. Ayi, zonse deni wake achipani. Pitirizani osabwerera pambuyo, osafowoka. Pitirizani kusapota chipani cha UTM chimene chidakupangani kuti mujoine UTM pasikulo. Chomwecho chikulimbikitseni kupita kutsogolo, osabwerera mbuyo. Kumbuyo kukulibe zabwino, zabwino zili kuti?
Leading everyone else. And every time you wonder the same thing. Why does this keep happening? Why do the most capable people so often stay in the shadows, while those who seem unqualified rise to the top? Is the system broken, or is it working exactly as designed? For most of your life, you were taught to believe something comforting, that society rewards talent, that the smartest, most capable people naturally rise to positions of power, that those at the top earn their place because they deserve it. It feels safe to believe that. It makes you think someone wiser is steering the ship. Someone who knows where we are headed. Someone competent enough to lead us there. But Aristotle would tell you this belief is an illusion. 2,000 years ago, he warned us about something most people still cannot see today. He saw that society almost never puts its best at the top, and he discovered why. Look around you, in business, in politics, in your own community. How many leaders today truly inspire confidence? How many seem competent enough to guide millions of lives? And how many look more like performers on a stage than architects of the future? This is not an accident. It is not chaos. It is a pattern, a built-in feature of how human societies organize themselves. Aristotle stood in Athens, the birthplace of democracy, and watched ordinary citizens choose their leaders. He listened to the debates in the agora, the crowded square where voices clashed and promises filled the air. People thought they were choosing the best, but Aristotle saw the truth. People were not selecting brilliance, wisdom, or virtue. They were selecting familiarity. They were choosing those who made them feel safe, even when those leaders lacked the competence to guide them forward. And that insight changes everything. If society rewards comfort over competence, if it consistently elevates those who play the role rather than those who have the substance, then maybe we have misunderstood what power really is. Because for Aristotle, power was never about putting the best at the top. It was about keeping the system alive. Aristotle did not just study politics, he studied people. And from observing people, he understood society. In Athens, the birthplace of democracy, citizens gathered to choose their leaders. They debated in crowded squares, argued in long assemblies, and cast their votes believing they were shaping the future. It was a revolutionary idea. For the first time in history, ordinary people had the power to decide who ruled them. But Aristotle watched these early experiments with sharp, patient eyes, and what he saw disturbed him. The men chosen to lead were rarely the most brilliant, they were rarely the most capable, and almost never the most visionary. Aristotle asked himself why. Why would people not want the best among them to lead? Why would they they place their collective future in the hands of someone less qualified? The answer he discovered was unsettling. Society does not choose leaders to maximize excellence. Society chooses leaders to avoid collapse. To explain this, Aristotle offered one of his most enduring metaphors. He saw society as a living body. Every part of that body has a role. Some parts think, like the brain. Some act, like the hands. Others protect, nourish, and sustain life. But the heart has a different purpose. Its job is not to invent or to reason. Its job is to maintain the rhythm that keeps the entire organism alive. For Aristotle, leaders are not meant to be the brain. They are meant to be the heart. Their role is not to be the smartest person in the room. Their role is to hold the room together. And this is where the design becomes clear. A brilliant leader who sees too far ahead often pulls society apart. Their ideas threaten established values. Their vision frightens those who cannot keep up. And so, sooner or later, the system rejects them. Society, Aristotle argued, has a kind of instinct for self-preservation. It will not follow someone who moves too fast. It will not trust someone who thinks too differently. Instead, it elevates the person who feels safe, the one who reflects the crowd's identity back to them, the one who promises not to shake the foundations too hard. That is why Aristotle believed the best government was not the one run by the smartest individuals, but the one whose leaders matched the character, fears, and desires of its people. He wrote, "The best regime is the one that fits its people." And this is not just ancient philosophy. It is the same logic you see today in companies where the likable manager is chosen over the visionary engineer, in politics where the charismatic speaker wins over the policy expert, even in small communities where the loudest voice becomes the leader, not the wisest one. This is not failure. This is how the system was designed to survive. Aristotle saw it clearly. Power does not seek brilliance. It seeks balance. It seeks stability. It seeks someone who can hold the organism together, even if that person is not the most competent. And once you understand this design, you can never see leadership the same way again. If society doesn't choose its leaders based on brilliance or competence, then one question naturally follows. What happens to the people who actually are brilliant? Where do they go? And why do they so rarely end up at the top? Aristotle believed the answer lies in human nature itself. In his Nicomachean Ethics, he wrote that the highest calling of a human being is not power or wealth, but something he called eudaimonia, the pursuit of human flourishing. And for those who seek eudaimonia, power is often a distraction, not a destination. Think about the most capable people you know, the scientist obsessed with discovery, the engineer who solves impossible problems, the artist who sees beauty where others see nothing. What drives them is not control over others, but mastery over themselves. Aristotle understood this. The truly excellent, what he called the virtuous, focus their lives on learning, creating, and improving. They do not spend their days building alliances, pleasing crowds, or manipulating emotions. Those games belong to a different kind of person entirely. And so, when society rewards familiarity over brilliance, these capable individuals quietly step aside. Some retreat into research labs and universities. Others build things the world does not yet understand. They choose the work itself over the stage of politics, but there is another reason they rarely lead. One more uncomfortable. The smartest people are often the hardest to follow. Aristotle noticed that visionaries tend to see possibilities invisible to everyone else. They challenge what is accepted. They question the rules others take for granted, and they move faster than most can keep up. This creates a paradox. The very qualities that make someone extraordinary also make them threatening to the collective. Their ideas sound too radical. Their solutions feel too unfamiliar. The crowd looks at them and thinks, "He is not one of us." And so, slowly but surely, the system filters them out. This happens everywhere. In companies, the brilliant developer rarely becomes CEO. Not because she lacks skill, but because she cannot or will not play the political games needed to rise. She focuses on solving problems, while others focus on managing perceptions. Guess who wins? In politics, the candidate who speaks hard truths often loses to the one who tells comforting lies. The crowd prefers the person who reflects their beliefs, not the one who challenges them. Even in small communities, the most thoughtful person is often ignored, while the loudest voice sets the direction. Aristotle would say, "This is not chaos, this is design." Society protects itself by elevating those who fit and quietly removing those who disrupt. But here's the twist. Not all intelligent people are excluded. Some brilliant individuals do hold power. So what makes them different? Aristotle hinted at this in his Politics. The leaders who succeed are rarely the pure thinkers or visionaries. They are the ones who can translate complexity into simplicity. They learn to speak the language of the crowd. They know when to hold back, when to make people feel safe, and when to hide the parts of their intelligence that would alienate others. In other words, to lead, even the smartest must perform a kind of self-limiting act. They cannot be entirely themselves. They must become symbols. And here lies a painful truth. Many brilliant people refuse to do this. They value authenticity over influence. They would rather remain true to their work than bend themselves into what the crowd wants them to be. Which is why, again and again, you see extraordinary minds left behind while the adaptable, sometimes less capable, sometimes less thoughtful, rise. This does not mean the system is fair. It is not. But it does mean the system is consistent. Aristotle would argue that society, like a living body, rejects what it cannot assimilate. And most people, when faced with someone too far ahead, choose comfort over challenge. They choose the familiar over the extraordinary. This is why you've seen it happen 1,000 times. The quiet genius overlooked, the visionary dismissed, the truth teller silenced, while someone more palatable takes the stage. It feels wrong when you witness it. It feels unjust. But Aristotle forces us to see it differently. This is not failure. This is how the organism survives. Because for society, survival matters more than potential. Balance matters more than brilliance. And safety, for most people, will always come before truth. Once you see this pattern, you start to realize something else too. It is not just that the brilliant are excluded. It is that many of them choose to step away, not out of weakness, but out of refusal. Refusal to play a game designed to reward appearances over substance. And that choice has shaped the world we live in today. Aristotle understood something most people still struggle to see today. Leaders are not chosen because they are the best. They are chosen because they fit. And the key to understanding why lies in one simple truth. Society does not run on reason. It runs on emotion. In his rhetoric, Aristotle explained that persuasion, the force that moves people, comes from 3 elements: logos, pathos, and ethos. Logos is logic, the realm of facts and reason. Pathos is emotion, the power of feelings. Ethos is credibility, the sense of trust and familiarity. And while we like to believe we choose leaders based on logos, the truth is, pathos and ethos almost always win. People follow those who make them feel safe, not those who challenge them to think harder. They trust those who look familiar, not those who seem alien or far ahead of their time. This is why, throughout history, societies have consistently elevated people who perform the role of a leader, even when they lack the depth to truly lead. Think about it. In companies, the friendly manager who gets along with everyone rises faster than the quiet expert who actually solves the hardest problems. In politics, the charismatic speaker wins the election, while the thoughtful policymaker fades into obscurity. social media, influencers who master entertainment reach millions, while researchers who produce breakthroughs remain unknown. It feels irrational when you see it up close, but Aristotle would argue it is perfectly rational if your goal is stability, not excellence. Because society functions like an ecosystem, the crowd does not want someone who makes them feel inferior. They want someone who mirrors their identity back to them, someone who reassures them, you are fine as you are, you belong. And here lies the paradox. The more capable you are, the less relatable you often seem. The more brilliant your ideas, the more threatening you appear to those who cannot understand them. So what happens? The system filters out the outliers and elevates the familiar, not because the familiar is better, but because the familiar feels safer. This is why Aristotle described democracies and even companies, families, and small groups as organisms with a survival instinct. Like a body rejecting a foreign organ, society rejects leaders it perceives as too different, even when those leaders could bring extraordinary progress. This isn't just philosophy. Modern psychology has confirmed it. Humans are wired for belonging. From an evolutionary standpoint, being accepted by the tribe once meant survival, and being cast out meant death. So when people choose leaders, they do not seek the most competent candidate. They seek the person who signals belonging the loudest, the person who seems like one of us. And the idiots in power we see today, they are not mistakes. They are products of this ancient instinct. They know how to play the crowd. They tell people what they want to hear, not what they need to hear. They smile, perform, and project confidence, even when they lack the depth to back it up. In a strange way, they are mirrors. They reflect back the values, fears, and desires of the people who choose them. This explains why the cycle repeats endlessly. Every time a capable visionary steps forward, someone else, more relatable, more likable, less threatening, takes the spotlight instead. And society keeps moving in circles, believing it has chosen wisely, while quietly rejecting the very people who could move it forward. The consequences are everywhere. Look at companies where innovation dies under safe, predictable leadership. Look at governments where short-term popularity trumps long-term solutions. Look at cultures where entertainment outweighs truth because audiences choose dopamine over discomfort. And yet, Aristotle would remind us, this is not a flaw in the system. This is the system. Because when survival is the goal, comfort beats brilliance every time. Familiarity beats progress. Stability beats transformation. So when you see an idiot in power, someone who seems unqualified, yet somehow sits at the top, you are not looking at a broken process. You are looking at a perfectly functioning one. Society, like any living body, chooses what keeps it alive today, even if it costs potential tomorrow. That is why Aristotle's insight still feels unsettling after 2,000 years. It forces us to confront a hard truth. Power is not about excellence. It is about compatibility. The leaders we get are not the best among us. They are the ones who most successfully perform the role we expect them to play. Once you see this, you start to understand why the world looks the way it does, why the cycle never seems to break, why history keeps repeating itself no matter how advanced we think we've become. Because the system doesn't reward who can think the farthest, it rewards who can fit the best. By now, it might sound like society has made a mistake, that elevating unqualified leaders is a sign the system is broken. But Aristotle would disagree. He believed this outcome was not an accident. It was a feature of how societies survive. Because leadership is not just about intelligence or competence, it is also about holding the collective together. Imagine society as a fragile structure. Millions of individuals with conflicting needs, fears, and desires, each pulling in a different direction. If you put someone too radical at the top, someone who moves faster than the rest can follow, the entire structure risks collapse. And So, Aristotle argued, societies unconsciously choose leaders who act like shock absorbers, leaders who soften the impact of rapid change, leaders who translate complexity into comfort, leaders who preserve stability even at the cost of progress. That is why so many idiots in power exist. Their role is not to innovate. Their role is to reassure. They stand on the stage and say the things the crowd needs to hear. They embody the familiar. They promise safety even when they cannot guarantee it. In doing so, they serve a psychological purpose. They create the illusion of control. Aristotle saw this clearly in Athens. The leaders chosen were not the architects of new systems. They were symbols of collective identity. They reflected back what the people already believed, so the crowd could feel that power still belonged to them. And this dynamic hasn't changed in 2,000 years. In companies, the CEO is often not the strategic mastermind behind innovation. They are the public face, the figure employees and investors can rally behind. Behind them, an entire board makes the real decisions. In politics, the president is often the actor on the stage. Behind the curtain, advisors, donors, and interest groups shape the real policies. Even in small communities, the leader often isn't the one making plans. They are the one people trust, the one who makes everyone feel aligned, even when others pull the strings in silence. This is the uncomfortable truth. The idiots in power we mock or resent are not always driving the system. More often, they are shields. They absorb anger. They distract attention. They give the appearance of unity while others quietly shape the future. Aristotle understood this duality. In his view, politics existed to maintain order above all else. And sometimes that means putting someone at the front who looks harmless enough to keep the crowd calm, while the real decisions happen somewhere else. This arrangement frustrates us because we crave fairness. We want to believe power goes to those who deserve it most. But society does not care about fairness. It cares about survival, and survival requires symbols. Figures who hold the fabric together, even if they are not the ones stitching it. Of course, this system has costs. Progress slows. Innovation stalls. Mediocrity gets rewarded while brilliance stays in the shadows. But from the perspective of the collective, this trade-off makes sense. Stability today matters more than potential tomorrow. A society that collapses in chaos has no future to optimize anyway. This is why, when you look closely, the presence of idiots in power is not a failure of the system. It is a stabilizing mechanism. It is the body protecting itself. And once you understand this, you stop seeing leaders purely as individuals. You start seeing them as functions within a larger organism. Some lead to inspire, some lead to transform, and some lead simply to keep the rhythm steady so the rest of us can keep moving. That rhythm may frustrate you. It may hold us back. But without it, society itself could unravel. This is the paradox Aristotle leaves us with. The very people we call unqualified, the very ones we mock as idiots in power, may be the glue keeping everything from falling apart. If idiots in power are not truly driving the system, then someone else must be. This is the thought Aristotle leaves us with. A thought most people avoid because it forces you to confront an uncomfortable possibility. Power is a stage, and the people you see at the front, the presidents, the CEOs, the leaders you know by name, are often just actors. Their job is to speak the lines, to project confidence, to keep the crowd calm. But the script itself, that is written somewhere else. Aristotle saw hints of this even in Athens. He noticed that the men chosen to lead were constrained by unseen forces, laws, institutions, wealthy patrons, and the expectations of the masses. Their power was never absolute. It was borrowed. 2,000 years later, nothing has changed. Behind every leader, there are networks shaping their choices, boards controlling CEOs, actors change, the stage evolves, but the play remains the same, and this is where the illusion deepens. We believe we are choosing leaders. We believe they hold the power to shape our future. But more often, they are symbols. Symbols designed to stabilize us, to give us the comforting sense that someone is steering the ship. Aristotle warned us, society rewards those who fit the role, not those who write the rules. So when you see an idiot in power, ask yourself, is this person truly in control, or are they simply playing their part? And more importantly, only if they are actors on a stage, who is holding the pen? Because once you realize this, you face a choice. You can keep playing the script written for you, trusting the stage and its actors. Or you can step behind the curtain and see the machinery for what it is. But be warned, once you see it, you can never unsee it. The question is no longer, why do idiots rise to power? The real question is, who benefits when they do? I want to hear from you.